What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for March 26, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day to everyone out there. Let's start off like we always do with a little housekeeping. And I wanted to follow up with something we talked about yesterday. We talked about Villanova versus UConn, Sweet 16 in 2005. And it was the first time, or I said that it was the furthest that Villanova had made it in a long time. It was, in fact, the first time they made the tournament since 1999. And it was the first time making the tournament under Jay Wright. Obviously, we know they would get their revenge on North Carolina in 2016. But nobody really reached out. But let me know. I still don't think that was a travel on Allen Ray. And again, the fact that I was a staunch Villanova hater back then, that's saying something, but I wanted to make sure I got the details of that because it was even more impressive that they made the Sweet 16 run after not being in the tournament since '99. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, on Instagram at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. That is the best marketing we can have, is just word of mouth. If you're enjoying it, likely someone in your network will as well. Be sure to check out Lenny Wagner. He's the author of Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Age of Sports. It's essentially a biography on Walter French, but it's so much more than that, especially if you're a history person. Gives a lot of the history of sports. Some of the rules, even in football, were different back then, and it kind of discusses that. And I've learned a lot from reading it, so I think you will too. But Walter French, we know, was a professional baseball and football player, both for the Pottsville Maroons and the Philadelphia Athletics. I sat down with Lenny a couple weeks ago, in the process of putting a package together starting April 1st, where really going to focus. Lenny and I talked more about Walter's professional baseball and football career, so that's essentially what the focus is going to be. But if you get the book, there's so much more than that. I mean, he was a star at Rutgers, was recruited by, and things were a lot different back then. And that was my biggest takeaway thinking about his college sort of era. It was, as much as we think it was different back then, which it was in the sense that there weren't as many teams. College football was the king of the hill, way more popular, and people thought it was superior to the NFL at the time. But while he was at Rutgers, Army was recruiting him and sort of making promises and things like this. Not too much different, though, than what today's transfer portal is. And yesterday, the transfer portal for college basketball opened. So it's just interesting. As much as we think it's so different, and as much as the timing and everything was different, it's just amazing to me how similar things were back then. But went to Army, played baseball and football, was an All-American football player, and that was at the time of George Gipp. Win one for the Gipper type deal. And obviously was a baseball star too, but it was just very, to me, the politics that went into the college game even back in the 20s. So go check that out. One Man's Journey Through the Golden Age of Sports by Lenny Wagner, the story of Walter French. I'm very excited to present just more on Walter French because I really do feel like this dude is a very interesting person that we really should know about, and a local guy from Morristown, which is not even 30 minutes away from Philly. So local guy that we all should know more about. Two-sport star before Bo and Dion did it in the 90s. So go. All the information you need is in the description wherever you're listening or watching to this. But I'm excited to start presenting more Walter French in the next coming days. Well, we talked yesterday about the Sixers having a process-like sort of game the other night and really doing their best to keep pace in the lottery standings. Not to be outdone, the Flyers said here, hold my beer. Blown out yesterday by the Maple Leafs, 7-2. They scored the first goal and then gave up 6 straight. Lost now 11 of 12. It's a mess. Tortorella had some interesting comments after the game as well, talking about how I'm paraphrasing, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but said he doesn't want to learn how to coach a team like a team like this, meaning nothing to play for down the stretch. He was like, "That's on me." We get closer to the end of the season, it's more and more I'm getting the feeling that the Flyers may have a new coach next year. So stay tuned for that. But if you're keeping score at home, the Flyers are in the 5th position, only 1 spot back of the 4th, and only 3 back of the 3rd position. So the Flyers potentially still could get a top 3 pick with 9 games left to play. Let's see if the Sixers can one-up them tonight, and it's going to be a tough one. They take on the Washington Wizards at home tonight. Washington is the worst team in the league, so it could be tough. The Brooklyn Nets are taking on the Toronto Raptors in Brooklyn. Toronto is just behind the Sixers and Nets, so it's a big game for them. 10 games left for both teams. Sixers and Nets tied for the 5th spot. Sixers are also only 3.5 out of the 4th. If they could somehow sneak into that 4th position, I think that would guarantee, even if other teams move up, that the Sixers would still be guaranteed a top 6 pick. So for me, I kind of would like to get that 4th spot, because I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, and depending on the outcome of the game, I will check into the NBA lottery rules, but I think, maybe it's 3rd. I don't know, but I'll look into it. But let's hope the Sixers can outdo the Flyers on what they did last night, especially playing at home. Do have some Eagles news and then sort of Eagles news. They did add some offensive line depth yesterday, signing Kendall Lamb. He's an 11-year vet, most recently played for the Dolphins to a 1-year deal. I mean, it's one of those things. I think this is how he's done this in the past, and I feel like this is what his offseason has been so far, is the low risk, high reward. I don't think this dude is going to come in and play, but certainly provide some depth for the Eagles. And obviously we know how guys respond when they go to Stoutland U. So not really a needle mover, but a move nonetheless. And then up north on the Turnpike, interesting move by the New York Football Giants, signing Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. Now that's Russell and Jameis Winston that they have signed. They have the 3rd pick in the draft. Does that mean they're out on Shedeur Sanders or a quarterback this year? And could be a strategic checker or a chess move for the Giants. Although I don't know with that front office if it will be, meaning they're going to load up on other positions this year and then try to find the quarterback next year. I don't think Russ is the answer. So I think, and this might come back to bite me. I'm sure I know there's at least 1, maybe 2 Giants fans out there that listen regularly. Probably going to snip this and keep it, but I think we can check off the Giants as a threat next year. But we'll see. Maybe Russ has some stuff left to cook. I mean, I don't know. We were talking about it the other night, about what the Giants should do, and I think a lot of times, and this is more the old school in me, you get your quarterback and build the team around the quarterback. I know they tried that with Daniel Jones, and it didn't work out, but maybe they're just not sold on Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they think the Cleveland Browns are going to take him at 1. Maybe they're really high on Russ, which with that front office, you never know. I don't know if I agree with it, because Shedeur Sanders seems to be the most polished and ready to play. Like, I don't think he's the type of guy who's going to need to sit out, kind of like a Peyton Manning, coming from the pedigree of having your father play in the NFL. But I don't know. That's why I am not the Giants GM, nor would I want to be. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, Phillies are in D.C. They boarded, I guess, a train yesterday, gearing up for tomorrow's home opener. Lots of feedback yesterday on my bold predictions, and shockingly, the one that everybody had the most to say about in agreement was that they think Topper's on the hot seat and could very well get fired. And like I said, I really think there's going to be a lot of urgency around this team this year, and I think guys are going to start getting a little Maybe not the players as much as the front office and the manager and everything. And I think guys are going to start getting a little on edge and kind of act out of desperation. But let's recap yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, based on what Rob Thompson said about trying a combination leadoff hitter, who do you think should hit leadoff going into the first game? 80% of you like the combo. And I agree. I think what you've been doing has not worked. And make these guys uncomfortable. Make these guys play like they're trying to prove themselves all over again. Whether or not Thompson's the guy for that, I don't know. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. We'll have another one Phillies related here in a minute. All right, so I gave you 5 bold predictions yesterday. I told you I had 10. Here are 5 more bold predictions, and then tomorrow I'll give you the win total and where I see this team finishing up. All right, we talked about Trey Turner leading off. I think Trey Turner is going to struggle this year, and maybe it's just me being down and negative on him, but I think he struggles and gets moved down the lineup. I think he ends up hitting 6th or 7th, possibly even 8th by the end of the season. They can't take him out of the lineup due to the ridiculous contract. I hope this is one prediction that I am dead wrong on, but I don't see him. I mean, it's been 2 years now. He's not lived up to even close of what the contract is. I think the struggles are going to be the same. I mentioned yesterday he's the one guy who is not saying, I'll hit anywhere, I want to win. Everybody else is like, I'll do whatever it takes. He's not saying that. And there's just something about, and I'll be honest, and I usually don't say this about players on our team. Trey Turner, we talk about punchable faces a lot on this podcast. Trey Turner might be a top 5 punchable face. So I don't see him improvement. I think he gets moved down in the lineup. Again, this is one I hope I'm wrong on, but Trey Turner, very punchable face. Number 2 bold, or I guess this would be number 7 bold prediction, and I've talked about this one before. Jose Alvarado is going to turn into a dominant closer this year for the Phillies. I think he came in slimmed down. He looked amazing in spring training, and I think he's going to end up holding down the back end of that bullpen, and I think he's going to end up having a very dominant year. I think he has the stuff. I think he has the experience now, got himself into shape. I look for him to be and I don't use that word lightly, dominant closer. Very much what we're used to with Brad Lidge. Now, the rest of the bullpen, that's a huge question mark. Can Kerkering, Strom, can they hold up? We'll see, but I do think Alvarado will be a dominant closer this year. Number 8, bold prediction. Brandon Marsh will be the Phillies' best outfielder this year. I think he's going to be the best offensive outfielder. I think you're going to see improved defense from him now that he's more healthy. But something tells me, because, again, a lot of this season is about desperation for this team, whether it's the front office, the players, the manager. So I think you're going to see him come out and have a breakout type of season. Not to the point where he's going to be an all-star or anything, but I think he's going to prove that he'll be a serviceable, everyday outfielder. And I think he will be the Phillies' best outfielder this year, because I can't rely on Max Kepler to stay healthy. And I think with Castellanos, you get what you get with him. We know what to expect, but I think Brandon Marsh is really going to take that next step this year. Number 4, I don't think is really, or number 9 is not really that bold of a prediction. However, I do think there's going to be a big trade deadline move. I think it goes back to, I feel like you know how they do the video yearbooks at the end of the season, and it's always like some catchy title for the 2025 Phillies, blah, 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 blah. For 93, I always remember because they showed it on rain delays, whatever it takes, dude. But I think that if we were making a video yearbook of the 2025 Phillies, I think it would be titled A Year of Desperation. So I think there is going to be a big trade deadline move. Something tells me they're not going to trade much in the farm system, though. I feel like that is something that John Middleton probably is always talking to Dombrowski about. Don't do whatever you got to do, but don't leave me screwed for like an extended period of time and wipe out my farm system like Rube did. So I do think there's going to be a big move. Maybe it's Vlad Guerrero Jr. I think the only way I would bring him in is if you have a guarantee that you're going to be able to sign him long term. Maybe it's somebody else, but I do think they will be way more active at the trade deadline this year than they were last year. And finally, probably the boldest of bold predictions, and this might upset some people, although I thought that was going to happen with Rob Thompson, and a lot of people agreed with me. I think we're going to see JT Realmuto's last season as Phillies catcher this year. They're not signing him to an extension before, or it doesn't look like anyway, before the season. They likely won't do it during the season. And I have a feeling that all things equal, he probably would like to come back. From a organizational standpoint, I think it makes sense to bring him back if the price is right, because you don't have anybody really ready to step up in the farm system. They have a guy, but he's only 19 and not nearly ready to take over yet. But I think somebody's going to swoop in and offer him a deal he can't refuse this offseason. So I think we're seeing the last of JT Realmuto this year. So there are the bold predictions 6 through 10. I gave you 1 through 5 yesterday. We'll revisit these at the end of the season, but I think Trey Turner struggles, gets moved down in the lineup. Jose Alvarado turns into a dominant closer this year. Brandon Marsh will be the Phillies' best outfielder. Big trade deadline move coming, and this will be JT Realmuto's last season. But that does lead to today's question of the day. JT Realmuto and Kyle Schwarber both are on the final year of their deals. There's been talk the entire offseason about extending them and giving them some sort of, I don't think anybody talked as far as number of years. But who would you bring back? Would you rather have Kyle Schwarber back or JT Realmuto? And I had to really stop and think about this because a lot's going to be dependent upon what happens this season. However, I think organizationally, you got to bring JT back because you don't have a catcher in the wings unless you just pick up and want to roll with Stubbs and Marchand for the next couple of years and then keep Schwarber for his leadership. I could see that as well. But who do you think? Who would you rather keep, Kyle Schwarber or JT Realmuto? As we're on the cusp of opening day, 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. All right. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Lots of great things going on at their sports fan network. Go to clashingconferences.com. Check out what they have to offer. Their podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then go to Philly Goat. My golf shirt is coming. I cannot wait. They have a partnership with Double Bogey Down. I went with the Frenetic. They have 3 distinct Philly-style golf shirts, so go check that out. And I have not had a chance to look at them yet. I saw the email came in last night, but apparently, if you've seen the comeback style is the rope hats. Apparently, they have rope hats. I have not been able to look and see anything about that, so I can't speak, but I did get an email from them talking about rope hats, so go check them out. But get a golf shirt, get some canvas loafers. It's that time. And use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Okay, today we're going to go back to 1988. And on this day in 1988, it's another day in March and another disappointing day in Big Five history. Now, it's disappointing when you lose one Big Five team loses in the Elite Eight. But when you do it, when 2 Philly teams lose in the Elite Eight, obviously it's doubly disappointing. So let's go back to that day in 1988. First, number 1 Temple lost to Duke 63-55. The Owls just could not get it going offensively. They shot 25.8% from the floor. Kevin Strickland and Danny Ferry led Duke, while future Sixers GM Billy King, frustrated and got under the skin of Mark Macon, played great defense on him, holding him to 6 for 29 shooting. Mike Vrieswick struggled that day, going 2 for 12. And the Temple Owls were so good that year that they shooting 28%, they still only lost to Duke by 10. And I do think this was the closest that John Chaney ever got to a Final Four. I think if that 2000 team didn't lose a Seton Hall. They had a good chance. The other ones were more Cinderella runs than anything, but this was John Chaney's best team probably, and the closest he had to get to the Final Four. And I think if you play that game, best of 7 series, Temple does win the best of 7 series against Duke, but it's March Madness. It's one and done, and that's what happens. Then later that night, it was Villanova's turn to disappoint as the 6th-seeded Wildcats lost to the number 1 seed Oklahoma. Stacey King led Oklahoma, shooting 12 for 20 en route to 28 points, had a monster second half. Nova led by 7 at halftime, and it looked like at least one Philly school was going to be able to salvage it, but Oklahoma made some adjustments to get to the Final Four. Nova was 3 years removed from the national title. And if there is any consolation to both Temple and Villanova losing in the Elite Eight on this day in 1998, it is the fact that the Kansas Jayhawks beat both Duke and Oklahoma to win the national title, and there is a Philly tie there. The Kansas Jayhawks that year were coached by one Larry Brown, future coach of the Sixers. So Larry Brown saved the day and got some type of revenge on the Philly schools for that day. But on this day in 1988, both Temple and Villanova lose in the Elite Eight, ending the Big Five's bid for a Final Four. Thank you to Larry Brown. And again, it might be a little petty of us, but Larry Brown at least helped take some of the sting out of that. And then finally today, our Big Five Women's Hall of Fame spotlight is on Stacey Smalls from Temple. Stacey played at Temple from 1999 to 2003. She's a Cheltenham High School graduate. She was a 3-time All Big Five, 3-time second team All A10. Helped lead Temple to their first Atlantic 10 title, where she was the MVP of the 2002 Atlantic 10 tournament. She was a 2-time All A10 All Defense. All A10 All Defense. I'm not sure either way. She graduated as Temple's sixth all-time leading scorer and was the only Al to lead the team in assists all 4 years. She was on the coaching staff at LaSalle. She's currently working as a PIAA referee and teaches at Manor College. But Stacey Smalls is today's Big Five Hall of Fame, Women's Hall of Fame spotlight from my Temple Owls. One of the best to ever do it, a big part of that first Atlantic 10 title, and still giving back, teaching at Manor College and becoming a PIAA ref. So Stacey, today we salute you as our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame spotlight. On this day back in 1988, both Temple and Villanova lost in the Final Four to Duke and Oklahoma respectively. Frustrating day for the Big Five. We'll have more on the Phillies as they gear up for opening day tomorrow, including my win total prediction as well as how far will this team go. Will they even make the postseason? Let me know your thoughts on my bold predictions from either yesterday or today. But the question of the day, who would you rather have back, Kyle Schwarber or JT Realmuto? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. Hopefully the Sixers can one-up the Flyers tonight, but we'll see. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 26, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a hump day, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.